So imagine for a second that you are managing logistics and you just booked a load of freight worth, let's say, $200,000.
Right, which is a pretty high-stress situation on a normal day.
Exactly. And, you do all your homework.
Yeah.
You meticulously check the carrier's credentials. The insurance certificate looks totally legitimate, perfectly formatted, zero typos.
Everything looks completely fine on paper.
Right. So the truck arrives, the pickup goes off without a hitch, and the driver hits the road. You breathe this massive sigh of relief. But then 3 days later, the freight just vanishes, like completely disappears.
It's gone.
Gone. And when you start digging, the floor just drops out from under you because you realize the carrier never actually existed, the identity they used. It was stolen from a completely different, entirely legitimate company operating like 3 states away.
It is a terrifying scenario, and I mean, the immediate aftermath is just pure chaos. Everyone immediately starts pointing fingers.
You can only imagine.
Oh, yeah. The broker is frantically trying to explain to the shipper why their goods are gone. The real carrier is desperately fighting to clear their stolen name, and law enforcement is standing there trying to figure out if they are looking at a localized physical theft or, a massive decentralized cyber attack.
Because for decades, when you thought about cargo theft, the image was pretty much out of a movie. Burglars with crowbars breaking padlocks at dimly lit truck stops in the middle of the night.
Right, the classic physical heist.
But that image is dead. Welcome to the new generation of freight fraud. It is not about bolt cutters anymore. It is about stolen digital identities, fake carrier profiles, and hijacked payment portals. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Today, we are diving deep into a fascinating collection of sources titled Fighting the Inevitable Heist. We're going to look under the hood to see exactly how criminals are infiltrating these digital freight systems. We'll measure the massive financial scale of these thefts, and we'll decode the vast alphabet soup of federal agencies stepping up to protect the supply chain.
It is such a vital topic for anyone paying attention to the global economy. I mean, we are fundamentally looking at a crime that threatens national infrastructure.
Yeah, this is way bigger than we thought.
Absolutely. This isn't just about a few missing pallets of retail goods. It is a systematic, highly sophisticated assault on the actual arteries of commerce.
And for you listening right now, just think about the device you were using to hear this conversation. Think about the specialized medical equipment at your local hospital or the industrial parts keeping your city's water running. The supply chain that delivers your entire life is now an active digital battlefield.
That's a great way to put it, a digital battlefield.
To really understand how these crimes function in the real world, we need to look at this staggering case study from 2026. This wasn't, a couple of missing televisions. This was an orchestrated AI hardware heist.
Oh, the audacity of this particular theft is almost hard to comprehend.
It is wild. So picture this. 40 incredibly dense AI server racks and over 108,000 memory modules are sitting in a warehouse in Utah, and they're contracted to be delivered to Texas. The total value is $31 million.
31 million, just massive.
Now, if you were writing a Hollywood script, this is where you would feature acrobats dropping from the warehouse ceiling, laser grids, heavy-duty volt drills. But in reality, the quote-unquote driver was a phantom.
Yeah, just a regular guy pulling up.
Right. He showed up at the loading dock, presented perfectly legitimate-looking paperwork, and successfully drove off with the hardware. But wait, here is the detail that blew my mind. The driver willingly agreed to GPS monitoring for the trip. Like, if he agreed to GPS monitoring, how does that help him? Doesn't it just leave a digital breadcrumb trail right back to his hideout?
Well, what's fascinating here is the mechanics of what investigators actually call a fictitious pickup. You see, the GPS tracking isn't usually hardwired into the truck's engine block.
Oh, it's not.
No, it is often just a third-party application installed on the driver's phone, or maybe a temporary transponder handed over with the manifest. So the criminal creates this false sense of security, drives out of the facility, goes maybe 3 miles down the road, and either disables the app or simply passes the transponder into the back of a passing pickup truck.
Oh, wow. That is so simple, but so effective.
It really is. By the time the logistics team realizes the signal is bouncing around aimlessly, the goods are already being unloaded into an unmarked warehouse in a completely different state.
So they didn't need a team of acrobats to steal $31 million. They just used a fake ID, a convincing email address, and a burner phone to drive the vault right out the front door.
Exactly.
And eventually, authorities found the empty trailer abandoned in California, but the AI hardware was just gone in the wind.
Which perfectly illustrates why identity verification is now just as critical, if not more critical, than physical cargo security. The criminals do not need a gun.
Right, they just need an email address.
Right, they just need paperwork that passes a quick visual check at a busy loading dock. They use these stolen identities to obtain the freight completely legally, right up until the moment they disappear.
Let's actually break down the mechanisms of these modern tactics, because, I mean, the sources list terms that sound more like a cybersecurity manual in a trucking handbook.
Mhm.
Take double brokering, for example.
Yeah, that's a big one.
From reading the research, it sounds remarkably like a real estate scam. Like it's like renting a luxury Airbnb
Yeah.
and then immediately subletting it to a stranger for double the price.
That is a highly accurate parallel.
And then you just pocket the cash
Yeah.
and leave the real owner and the unsuspecting guest to deal with the fallout when the cops show up.
In the freight world, it works exactly like that. The criminal poses as a legitimate trucking carrier to win a load from a logistics broker. But the criminal doesn't actually own any trucks.
Wait, no trucks at all?
None. Zero trucks. Once they secure the contract, they illegally rebroker that exact same load to a completely different, totally legitimate trucking company.
Oh, man. So the real driver shows up.
The real driver shows up, picks up the goods, completes the delivery perfectly, and then, submits their invoice. But the criminal intercepts the payment from the original broker, cashes out, and vanishes.
So the actual driver who did all the heavy lifting never gets paid, and the original broker is left holding the bag.
Exactly. It's devastating for small, independent drivers.
And when the authorities finally catch on to that fake company, do the criminals just pack up and quit?
Not at all. They become what the industry calls a chameleon carrier.
Chameleon carrier. I like that term.
Right. Instead of trying to repair a burned reputation, they simply abandon the fraudulent USDOT number and register a new one. Or, even more insidiously, they scour government registries for legitimate, dormant trucking companies.
Like someone who went out of business.
Yeah, maybe an independent owner-operator who retired 5 years ago. They hijack that dormant profile, update the contact information, and suddenly they are operating under a pristine, decade-old safety record that easily passes automated vetting systems.
That is incredibly sneaky. But what about load redirection? How do you just change a delivery destination mid-transit without setting off massive alarm bells?
Well, it relies heavily on intercepting the communication flow. The criminal monitors the legitimate transit updates. And while the real driver is on the road, the criminal sends a spoofed email to the driver.
An email that looks exactly like it came from the broker.
Exactly. Perfectly designed to look like it came from the original broker, claiming there has been a sudden change in plans. They reroute the driver to a quote-unquote temporary holding facility, which is actually a cross-dock operated by the thieves.
Unbelievable.
So the legitimate driver unloads the freight, thinking they were just following orders from their boss, and drives away empty.
Leaving the criminals to quietly pack up the goods and fence them on the black market? That is terrifying because every single step of that process feels like standard, everyday business communication to the people involved.
Yeah, nobody thinks twice until it's too late.
It only looks like a crime in hindsight, days later. Which means the defenders can't just be the highway patrol anymore. If the crime is no longer physical, the people fighting it have to change too.
And we are seeing that shift happen right now.
Right. In April 2026, the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center, or IC3, issued a massive nationwide warning about a surge in cyber-enabled cargo theft.
This warning was a major pivot point for the industry. The FBI recognized that cybercriminals were not just sending generic trick emails. They were systematically gaining access to broker systems, posting fraudulent load listings, and then redirecting the freight to their own criminal networks.
But they were taking it even further, weren't they? The FBI found that these cybercriminals were actually infiltrating government databases.
Yes, that was the really alarming part.
They were altering FMCSA carrier registrations, hijacking company identities at the federal level. It's the equivalent of someone hacking the DMV to print a flawless, legally valid driver's license featuring my name, but, their photograph. If the federal database itself is compromised, how does a broker even verify who they are hiring?
And that is exactly why federal agencies beyond traditional law enforcement are now stepping into the arena.
Right, because looking at the list of agencies involved here, I saw the TSA, which I have to admit I'm a bit confused by.
A lot of people are.
I thought the TSA's entire job was making me take my shoes off at the airport and checking my carry-on bag. And then there's CISA. I understand the TSA looking at physical security blending with cyber, but NISA.
The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, yes.
Their mandate is critical infrastructure, like power grids, water treatment plants, and nuclear facilities. Are we really at the point where a trailer full of memory cards is classified on the exact same national security level as a municipal power plant?
This raises an important question about how we define infrastructure in a digital age. The TSA, despite its reputation, is actually tasked with protecting all surface transportation, not just aviation.
Oh, I had no idea about that.
Yeah. They are actively proposing rules that would require surface transportation operators to establish formal, audited cyber risk management programs. They recognize that freight crime blends digital and physical tactics.
And what about CISA?
As for CISA, their involvement is arguably the most significant shift we've seen.
How so?
Because CISA views the supply chain as the literal lifeblood of the economy. If a coordinated cyber attack disrupts the movement of goods, it has the exact same cascading catastrophic effect as shutting down a power grid.
That makes a lot of sense when you put it like that.
Right. Under a regulation known as CISA, covered organizations now face incredibly stringent rules. If they experience a significant cyber incident, they might be required to report it within 72 hours.
Wow. 72 hours is a fast turnaround for a major incident.
And it gets stricter. If they pay a ransomware demand to unlock their systems, they have to report it within 24 hours.
That fundamentally changes corporate behavior.
Yeah.
It forces companies to completely rewrite their incident response plans. It rips cybersecurity out of the IT basement and puts it squarely on the desk of the transportation director. Because securing the physical padlock on the back of a trailer is completely useless if you haven't secured the digital data that tells the trailer where to go.
If I can hack your system and simply change the destination address on the digital manifest, I do not need to break your padlock. You will unwittingly deliver the stolen goods directly to my warehouse.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
When you combine high-tech cyber operations with massive volumes of freight, the financial stakes become astronomical.
The numbers are staggering.
Let's look at them. In
Wow.
2025, official cargo theft losses approached $725 million. But that is just what was voluntarily reported, right?
Correct. That's just the tip of the iceberg.
The National Insurance Crime Bureau, the NICB, estimates that cargo theft actually costs the U.S. economy tens of billions of dollars annually. Tens of billions. When thieves start targeting entire truckloads of pharmaceuticals and advanced AI hardware, we cross over from corporate losses to national security concerns.
Cargo theft has evolved into one of the most profitable criminal targets in the country. We are no longer talking about petty theft or opportunistic crimes of passion.
No, this is highly organized.
Incredibly lucrative, compartmentalized, illicit enterprise.
And when the stakes get that high, the law enforcement response scales up drastically. Early in 2026, there was a massive, coordinated bust in California.
Oh, that was a huge operation.
Yeah, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department launched an operation through their Cargo Criminal Apprehension Team. They executed 13 different search warrants simultaneously across multiple counties.
13 at once.
They arrested 9 suspects, recovered $1 million in pure cash, and found $7 million in stolen commercial products and electronics. And this wasn't a crew just hitting one unlucky warehouse. This single criminal ring had targeted 36 different companies.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, a bust of that magnitude illustrates exactly why agencies like HSI Homeland Security Investigations are frequently brought into these cases now.
HSI. I usually associate them with border control.
Well, HSI specializes in dismantling sophisticated cross-border criminal organizations. You have digital reconnaissance teams operating overseas to identify vulnerable freight, logistics specialists in the U.S. orchestrating the fictitious pickups, and complex fencing networks to liquidate the goods.
So it's a completely international operation.
Exactly. When a network spans multiple states and hits 36 different companies, local property crimes units simply do not have the jurisdiction or the resources to track the digital footprints.
Which perfectly explains why the logistics industry is throwing its full weight behind new legislation. Specifically, the Combating Organized Retail Crime Act of 2025, or CORICIA.
Yes, CORICIA is a massive piece of this puzzle.
They are pushing lawmakers to expand federal criminal statutes, specifically to confront this type of interstate syndicate.
The most vital component of CORICIA is that it proposes allowing prosecutors to look at prolonged theft incidents over a 12-month period and try them as a single, coordinated enterprise.
Why is that 12-month period so important?
Well, historically, defense attorneys could isolate each stolen truck as an individual, unrelated event. This minimized the penalties for the people caught on the ground.
Ah, I see. But if you orchestrate a year-long digital campaign to spoof 50 different carriers and steal 50 separate loads, that's not just a string of bad luck.
No, that's a criminal syndicate.
Right. Pooling those incidents over 12 months means prosecutors can bring down the hammer with racketeering charges, fundamentally changing the risk-reward calculation for the thieves.
Exactly. You need the legal framework to dismantle the entire network, from the hacker in Eastern Europe to the driver at the loading dock.
But relying entirely on federal task forces and new legislation leaves the industry bleeding money today. They can't wait for new laws to wind their way through Congress, which is why logistics companies are starting to weaponize their own data to fight back on the front lines.
That to protect themselves now.
Take the FMCSA's National Consumer Complaint Database. It used to just be the hotline you'd call if you saw trucks swerving dangerously on the highway.
Right. Historically, it was almost exclusively dedicated to reporting unsafe operating practices or mechanical failures.
But today, it has evolved into a frontline weapon against fraud. Brokers and carriers are using it to report double brokering and broker payment fraud. The FMCSA is actively enforcing regulations to stop criminals from fraudulently selling U.S. DOT numbers.
And they've rolled out a completely revamped unified registration system to verify identities before bad actors can even get into the system to cause damage.
Which is huge.
It really represents a massive cultural shift from reactive safety checks to proactive fraud prevention.
But there's one defense strategy detailed in the source material that genuinely made me pause.
Yeah.
The NMFTA, the National Motor Freight Traffic Association, they operate a threat report portal.
Yes, a very innovative approach.
It allows companies to log incidents of ransomware, fictitious pickups, and load redirection. But the entire system is built on the power of anonymity.
Which surprises a lot of people.
When I first read that, I was baffled. If a chameleon carrier steals $200,000 from you, shouldn't you be screaming their fake DOT number from the rooftops to warn everyone else? Why anonymous?
In an ideal world, absolute transparency would be the best defense. But in the real world of logistics, an immense stigma surrounds victimization.
Stigma. Like people are embarrassed.
More than embarrassed. Imagine you are a major logistics broker handling accounts for Fortune 500 companies. If you publicly admit that your internal systems were breached or that your dispatchers were socially engineered into handing over high-value goods to a criminal with a spoofed email address, the market reaction is swift and brutal.
Oh, I get it. Shippers lose confidence.
Exactly. If you look like a soft target, your clients pull their contracts and go to your competitor.
Which is exactly what the criminal syndicates are counting on. The silence of the victims is the very foundation of their business model.
Many victims quietly swallow the financial loss and sweep the incident under the rug to protect their reputation. These fraud rings are highly efficient. They reuse the same fake websites, the same spoofed broker domains, and the same malicious IP addresses against dozens of targets.
And as long as no one talks, the tactics keep working.
Right.
Oh, wow. That is a massive paradigm shift. By guaranteeing anonymity, the NMFTA portal completely dismantles the criminal's core advantage. They are allowing the industry to weaponize the threat data without risking the reputational damage of going public.
Precisely. The goal of this portal isn't to launch a police enforcement action. Its goal is purely situational awareness. If one company anonymously reports a specific phishing domain used in a load redirection scheme, the NMFTA can instantly broadcast that indicator of compromise to the rest of the industry before anyone else falls for it.
And you see similar educational pushes from groups like the Transportation Intermediaries Association and the Freight Fraud Task Force.
Education is key.
They understand that by the time a load is physically stolen, it's usually too late. Fraud prevention has to start before the pickup. It's about training dispatchers to spot subtle inconsistencies in an insurance certificate or verifying the domain name and an email address before hitting reply.
And it's not just federal and industry groups taking action. The state-level legislation really highlights the jurisdictional nightmare of this crime.
Oh, jurisdiction has to be a total mess with this stuff.
Think about the complexity of investigating one of these modern thefts. A cybercriminal overseas uses a spoofed IP address to impersonate a broker based in New York.
Okay.
They hire a legitimate driver from Texas to pick up a load in California and then digitally redirect it to a warehouse in Nevada.
Oh my goodness.
When the freight vanishes, who has jurisdiction? Local police departments simply do not have the authority or resources to trace digital footprints across state and international borders.
Which is why states are taking matters into their own hands. In 2026, Tennessee created a specific legal definition for fraudulent freight theft and established standardized reporting metrics for it.
A very smart move.
Meanwhile, Arizona and California advanced their own dedicated state-level cargo theft task forces. By establishing these specific state laws, they are trying to close the gap between local physical theft and federal cybercrime.
It is a necessary evolution in our legal code. The definitions of the crime have to match the modern reality of how the crime is executed.
Okay, we have covered a massive amount of ground today. We have journeyed from physical crowbars to hijacked federal carrier registrations. We've examined a $31 million AI heist and millions in recovered cash from California task forces.
We've definitely seen the whole spectrum.
The overarching theme here is brilliantly clear. Freight fraud is a cybersecurity problem, it is a supply chain problem, and it is absolutely a national infrastructure problem.
Without a doubt.
You can't just padlock a truck anymore. You have to lock down the identities, the emails, and the digital systems that actually move the freight. So what does this all mean?
That's the big question.
For you listening, whether you are directly involved in the logistics industry or just rely on the goods it transports, the ultimate takeaway is about digital vigilance. Knowing exactly who to call, whether it is the FBI's IC3 for a cyber incident, CISA for critical infrastructure threats, or the NMFTA portal to anonymously share an emerging trend, that knowledge is the difference between stopping a fraud attempt in its tracks and becoming the next $200,000 victim.
It requires a completely new mindset. And, to connect all of this back to how we started, we have spent over a century building incredibly robust physical highways to move physical goods across this country.
Right. Massive infrastructure.
We built truck stops, way stations, massive concrete barriers, and physical security measures. But if a criminal sitting at a laptop thousands of miles away, who has perhaps never even set foot inside a truck, can steal a 40-ton vehicle full of AI servers just by manipulating data, it makes you wonder.
Wonder what?
Does the future of trucking security rely more on software engineers and identity verification algorithms than it does on traditional security guards?
Wow. From physical highways to digital fortresses, that is a wild, fascinating thought to leave off on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you. Keep looking for the invisible digital systems that run our physical lives, and we will catch you next time.